All right, welcome to the Hidden Tracks podcast. We are back this week. I have a special guest, Jason Lyles from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere you find podcasts. If you want to reach us, you can reach us at myhiddentracks99 at Gmail. Our Twitter is myhiddentracks1, Facebook Hidden Tracks, Instagram Hidden Tracks 99. And if you like what you're hearing, please go out. Give us a little review. 5 stars always helps. Trying to get the word out there, trying to help people that don't have a lot of music out there. Just get their name out there, build them up. And if you like them, follow them, do everything you can to help these artists out, especially in the times that we're having. So today, Jason Lyles from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I want to say thank you so much for coming on board. And how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. For those of you who don't know Jason, he's a singer-songwriter from Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's got a new gripping song out called The Fight. He just released another song called Goodyear out there, and he's got a new album coming out on the 23rd that we're anxiously awaiting. And so, I mean, I want to start this off and just say, I mean, how's it been lately? You're trying to release an album during unprecedented times and what we're faced against as a nation, and you just came out with a song that's pretty telling about what the world is facing. I mean, how are you handling all this?
I'm handling it okay. I've been. It's not as bad as it was this spring. As far as this album goes, it's been. I had the advantage of actually starting on it before all the COVID hit. I had actually recorded most of The Fight in January. And so we were getting going on this album. And then, I got most of that song down, part of the next one, and then everything just shut down. The studio shut down. All my gigs got canceled, and it was just insane. And so now it was like I was stuck at home, and I started doing the live stream thing, and I did that for a while, and then that got kind of old. But but then in the summer, I do a lot of outdoor kind of things, so it kind of picked back up, and I kind of gained some momentum again. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually my friends in a band, and I'm putting on an outdoor concert in my backyard this weekend, so they can get some practice and get out there and perform in front of people. Because where we are in the Northeast in New Jersey, it's pretty much been shut down forever. So it's been really hard out in this area. But it's interesting that you wrote The Fight in January. Prior to everything that's happening in the world, where The Fight actually is a perfect song for it. I mean, how did you come to grips with when you saw everything that was going on? Did you change anything about that song, or were you it was what it was already, and it's exactly for what we need at this time?
It was what it was already. I was inspired a lot. I started writing some last year for this album, and in January too. And a lot of what inspired me was the Women's March and some other things that were going on, in the country. And I just kind of wanted to make this song that was not really specific about one cause or one thing, but could apply to a lot of them. And so then my videographer, when I was going to release this is the first single from the album, my videographer said, "Man, we got tons of footage from the protests downtown in Chattanooga, because I guess it was May and June is when it really hit the I Can't Breathe."
Yeah.
And there's an organization in Chattanooga called I Can't Breathe, CHA, and who I support, and they organized all of these, and he just got tons of good footage from this, and it just totally captured the moment. At the very first night of protests, the National Guard came in. I mean, first it was like, okay, Chattanooga PD comes up. Then the Hamilton County police department comes up, and then the state troopers come up, and then the National Guard comes up, and so it's just this big confrontation. And he caught parts of it and got some great drone footage. And and since it was just kind of like a perfect storm of elements coming together. I had this song that described that, and it was a cause that I'm passionate about, and the footage from that cause got captured, and I was like, let's do this. And so it just kind of came together so great.
That's awesome, man. So what you're doing now, it all starts back at a certain point in your life, and it's usually sometime when you're a child. And music takes a different, it kind of transforms from Saturday morning cartoon theme songs to actual music. Do you remember when that changed for you? Do you remember when you heard, or do you even remember what it was that you heard? Because I do. I remember what it was that I heard when I realized that music was something different when I was a kid.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with like the cartoon theme songs and stuff, because that's one of the first things I did when I was a kid. We had a piano growing up, and I would just sound out the melodies to, cartoon shows and things like that. But what really got me into real music was my mom. My mom has this huge record collection. She had, 45s and 12-inch records. And we would do this thing where we had a front porch with a swing, right? And so our living room had a window that goes that looks out onto the front porch, and we had a record player in there. And my mom would open up the windows and put the speakers in the windows, and then just set these records going, and we would just swing in the swing, like as high as we could get. And it was all kinds of stuff from like the 70s and 80s, lots of even some stuff from the 60s. She had a lot of Beatles albums, and she had some 80s pop stuff and 70s pop music, and she would just set them where they would drop and just play song after song, and we would have a good time. And that was kind of what got me going and what got me into music.
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean, it's funny how you just described it, and how I literally just saw you on that swing with your mother on that front porch. Like and that's what I think music does for a lot of people. Like it's that memory that no matter what, it's never going to fade. Yeah, I mean, you can be as old as you're going to get, and that memory of being on that porch swing is never going to fade with that music coming out. I mean, it's a beautiful sight. It's one of those, I talk about it a lot as music being that time machine. And I'm sure if you hear one of those songs that should be blasting, it brings you right back to that time.
Yeah, it does. If I hear "I Just Called to Say I Love You" by Stevie Wonder, I'm out there on the porch with my mom. We're singing the song. We're going through the holidays, through the year, and it's awesome. And that's one of the things that one of the things I really want to do. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and up until COVID, she would come to a lot of my gigs, and she would dance. She'd be my backup dancer. She goes around singing my songs. To hear her, hear those melodies and those lyrics come from her, and that's it's pretty special. And I think back to my mom and how she had an influence on me, and I'm hoping I have this musical influence on my daughter as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will, and I'm sure you won't hear it from her until she's way older to let you know how much it meant to her. Um, but I mean, it's one of those things that as you get older, you never realized how much your parents gave up and how much they did for you. And it's those little things, sitting on the porch and listening to music that could mean the most out of anything that's ever happened, which
Yeah.
is awesome. And, who knows how many times you may have told your mother how much that meant, but I'm sure it wasn't as much as you should have. But
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure.
So when you started finding that music and listening to it, and what was your next step as that? Did you just start to try to find stuff yourself that you liked, or did you rely on listening to your mom's stuff, and or did it change for you? You know, growing up in the era that I think you and I did. I mean, music was constantly changing. I mean, there was so much different stuff coming along. From you had your glam metal, your pop music, you had, you know, Metallica got big, Guns N' Roses, then grunge and hip hop, and I mean it was just ever changing. Did you find your own stuff, or were you always, you know, were you searching for new things?
Yeah, I can tell you a story about that, and it involves a big influence of mine. Um, so when I was a little kid in the '80s, with my mom swinging on the porch, my source of music was her and MTV and the radio, and that was it. And so I kind of picked and chose some of that stuff that I liked, and it was kind of like I felt like it was like I wasn't choosing it for myself. I was kind of given what was fed me, and I picked out of that. But you think about in 2020, and in the past 15, 20 years, how easy it is to like find music that's different from the mainstream and things that you can really zero in on. It was a lot harder back then. Um, but what really changed for me, I guess I was in high school, and I was into I was getting into grunge and that kind of stuff. But I saw this video on MTV in 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. I didn't, I was up really late, and it was this guy singing, and his face was flying around, and it was his face was flying around against all this like weird animation and stuff, and he kept talking about he wanted a girlfriend, and I was like, oh man, this is so great, and I didn't catch who it was, and I was like, man, this is the kind of music I wanted to play. And so I go to a record store, and I'm like, okay, I got this song, like it's called Girlfriend or something. And like finally they dig around on their, 1990s computer, and I figure out that it's Matthew Sweet.
Yeah,
And
one of the best.
oh yeah, and that was just it. Matthew Sweet, I was so into him, and he's just phenomenal. He's been a huge influence on my music, especially my early writing. But that was that was that aha moment of where like I can seek out stuff that's out there and not have to rely on pop radio and stuff to give me things. I can go out and find the stuff that I really like, that really connects with me.
Yeah, and that's I mean, Matthew Sweet's been brought up on this podcast a bunch of times. He's I mean, I'm a huge fan of his, always have been. He was one of those guys where I mean, I guess today's term is indie darling. But I
Hmm.
guess back in that time he was probably our indie darling, because he was putting out some amazing stuff that nobody really listened to, you know, and it was kind of like your own little thing that you had to yourself, which was awesome. I mean, finding that music, and you know, I had a journey like that too. Like I was never satisfied. I was never satisfied with MTV or the Z100s of the world or K Rock. It was just like, okay, it's the same stuff that's on MTV is on the radio, and I'm just how many times can I hear Outshined by Soundgarden? It was a great song the first time I heard it, but the 989th time I heard it, it wasn't that good. And going to
Right.
record stores and having people that you could go up to and be like, I need something new that no one's heard of. And I mean, I went to the record store literally. I would just go there and hang out. Like I would
Hmm.
literally leave high school. I'd drive right down to the record store if I wasn't working, and I'd sit there with the guy who worked there, and I'd just listen to the music that was coming in. And that's how I found stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I actually had a friend who worked at our local record store, so I kind of did the same thing sometimes. And the bands and groups and artists who've really influenced me have been those that I've kind of connected with and sought out. I guess, in the past years, they call it, the hipsters. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't listen to that. It's too mainstream. Like I was doing that back in the '90s and connecting with people and bands that people didn't know. Another example for me was Jump Little Children. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a band out of Charleston, South Carolina, and they had sort of this, they were kind of like the Decemberists of the '90s or something. They had like a
Hmm.
cello, an upright bass, and a guy who played like accordion and melodica and stuff, and it was just really kind of folk rock kind of stuff. I loved it. And the first time I saw them was like my freshman year of college when they were nobody. They'd come to like my community college and to play and just to earn some money, and then they blew up and they got a record deal, and so they've been one of my other big influences, and a lot of the reason why I have cello on a lot of my songs is because I love that sound.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear that in some of your stuff, and one of the things listening to some of your stuff, and I mean this in the sincerest form as a compliment, and I hope you take it that way. I hear a lot of, and I talking with my wife, listening to your stuff, I'm like, he kind of sounds like Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket and Duncan Sheik had a baby. Like your voice comes out that way, and it's unique. It's cool. So I can hear some of that older '90s pop, to it with that nice writing behind it.
Yeah, Glenn Phillips from Toad is one of my big influences too. He's probably the two biggest things I get compared to is Glenn from Toad, and then Billy Joe from Green Day. They think my voice sounds like Billy Joe, and I like Green Day. That's great. I'm not trying to be Green Day or anything, but if they but
Yeah,
I've had people say like, well, you have that like mainstream, Green Day kind of voice. I'm like, okay, thanks. Even my mom says like, you sound like Green Day. So,
wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have to re-listen to stuff and put Billy Joe in my head because I didn't hear it, but
yeah,
uh,
I think
yeah,
it's just my voice. I don't think it's like my style or anything. I think it's like Billy Joe singing Toad the Wet Sprocket songs or something. I
yeah.
don't know.
Which, hey, could be cool. It could be
Yeah,
cool.
I'd listen to it.
Yeah. So when you started finding that stuff, what drove you to writing and doing your own stuff? What was the you were saying you were playing piano, and was that your first instrument?
It was. I took piano lessons when I think I was in second grade or something. And so, and I took it for like a year or two and I didn't really stick with it, but it gave me
None,
enough of
none
a,
of us do. None of us do.
yeah, it gave me enough of a background to learn, notes. I knew chords and a little bit of music theory and how that worked. And so I would apply that to things I wanted to do. But then I guess it was in middle school, and I made friends with a guy, and he had electric guitar, and he taught me some chords and stuff, and then yada yada, the rest is history. I started a band with that guy, and we were doing covers of weird stuff like, I don't know, Ugly Kid Joe and things like that at high school shows, and then we started writing together, and it was, we were in high school. It wasn't the best songwriting in the world, but it was like original, it's stuff that we came up with. And we were like, hey, we wrote this and we were proud of it. And so I just kind of, honed my skills since then. And when I got in college, that's when I played in another band, but I did a lot of solo acoustic stuff. And that's a lot of what I do now. And that's when I really got into songwriting and doing it as a solo performer and being able to just sit down with me and the guitar and be able to put on a show for people. And so that's when I really got into that, and my songwriting, I think, increased exponentially better once that happened.
Is that where you're most comfortable? Just you and a guitar without a band?
Um, it's I wouldn't say comfortable. I'm good at it, and I've been pretty successful at it. Even during COVID, but it's not near as fun to me to play by myself than to play, as a duo or a band. I've had my drummer and percussionist Jeff Bridges. He's done a lot of shows with me, just me and him, and just just the vibe of having somebody else to play off of besides the audience, it adds to that energy. And so it's fun and to have a band like that. But there's a lot of benefit and advantage to being a solo performer as well.
So when did you really want to make a go of this? I mean, you talk about writing and being in college and being in a band and then doing your own thing acoustically. Because I know it's for a lot of people to make that jump to just be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. What was it that made you just say, okay, this is it. I'm doing this?
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of moments that stick out. There's a lot of moments that encourage you to stick with something. I think back to when my college band would play huge parties and play at these venues, and we'd make a bunch of money, and we'd have people singing our songs back to us and stuff. That was fun. Um, and I guess when I started playing solo acoustic by myself, and you play 3 nights in a row and you get paid, and you're just like, man, I like this. I like making money playing music. This is nice, and it's pretty cool to be able to do that. And so you get up into like the 2000s, and I was putting out albums, and I was still doing band stuff. Like I would play as kind of like Jason Lyles band and have a band back me up, and we'd play bars and we'd play a bunch of covers and stuff. And it was cool, but it wasn't as cool as those shows um, where it's just me connecting with an audience and playing my own stuff, um, and it's more about my songwriting instead of you know getting drunk people to dance.
Yeah, yeah. It's the storytelling, and I think that's one of the coolest things that used to be on TV and on VH1. Storytellers, when you just get to hear the
Hmm.
story about how they wrote the song, what led them there, but the song itself is actually a story, which I like, and I there's nothing more than that I like than hearing a song that I like, connecting with the lyrics, then sitting down and reading the lyrics, and it gives it two different ways to look at a song. When you write a song, is it just are you taking what's around you, or do you have these ideas, these epiphanies in the middle of the night that this will work? Or are you always trying to tell a story?
Yeah, I'm always trying to tell a story, and it's really weird how some of my songs come about. Um, some of them I've had an idea for a song for years. Like on the new album, there's a song called More Weight, which is about Giles Corey, who was a historical figure who got pressed to death during the Salem witch trials. And I've had this idea to write that song for years, and I've had lyrics and stuff in my head, but I never could get the music for it. And then one day it's just like it just clicks, and like, oh, I've got the song. And then I have other songs where I have a melody or a chord progression. I have it for a long time, and then finally the words come. It's like I have the story that matches this music. And so it's kind of weird how those work out together. Sometimes the lyrics come first, sometimes the music comes first, but it's when they really mesh together. It's like, oh, now I've got a song.
Yeah. So besides what you're doing now, is there anything that you've wanted to do musically that you maybe have been unable to do? Or are you satisfied with what you're doing?
Um, well, we could talk about two aspects of that. One of them is recording and producing and releasing music. One thing that I've had a goal of for years is to put out a Christmas album, and I finally started on that this year. But it's not complete. I have one song that I've had the arrangement in my head for years and years. I finally got it down during the pandemic, and so I'm going to be releasing that next month on November 13th.
Awesome.
And it's my version of We Three Kings, which is it's kind of got this flamenco kind of vibe to it, but it's interesting, and I've had that idea for a long time. But I want to put out a full on Christmas album. One of my favorite albums is the Carpenters' Christmas Portrait. I think that's like the best Christmas album of all time, and like I would love to put something out like that and collaborate with a bunch of musicians and get something like that made. And as far as performing, there's probably some bigger venues I'd like to play. But I've had a lot of success at being, playing with just solo acoustic in all kinds of venues. I play all these places and I just kind of make the rounds. Every 6 weeks I'm back, and
Yeah.
I've been really successful at that. But there's a lot of bigger venues when I have my band with me that I'd really like to get into. And so that kind of sucks right now because they're really not doing those kind of shows right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's so many venues out there that are just, and I don't know what to do. I don't have the money to keep them all going. I can only donate as much as I can, but to watch some of these places, historical venues too, that are just going by the wayside because of everything that's going on, it's sad.
It is, and I've seen bands, local bands hurting, bands that are like, big and we're doing really well and successful. And then like a lot of one of our best venues in town, which is Songbirds, which is it was a 2 venues and a guitar museum all in one. And it closed down just a couple of months ago. And it was so sad. And I was kind of in talks to get a show there. But the bands are hurting too. Like a lot of them don't have any place to play, and they're losing money. And that's when I'm like, well, maybe it's kind of an advantage to be a solo artist, and I can do this thing on my own outdoors on a patio somewhere. And so that's when that advantage comes in. It may not be as fun as like vibing with other musicians, but it's available to me right now.
Yeah, no, and that is, I mean, you bring up that good point, and I don't want bands to go by the wayside because of everything that's going on. It's not only the venues; it's bands that are just like, well, what are we going to do? We can't do anything right now, and I know how hard it is to stop doing something for a while and then trying to pick it back up, and just that passion being gone, especially, if you're on the right path and things were going well for you, and then all of a sudden, it's like every door you're basically in a room that has 4 doors and they all slam at the same time.
Right. And I'll have a lot of friends bands in town, and they're doing stuff like, they're using the opportunity to record music and make new music videos and things like that. And so, one of my friends, he was like, well, we got 4 music videos in the works, and we're going to kind of release one every couple of months, and maybe that'll get us through another year until things come back. So people are trying to innovate and do outdoor drive-in shows and things like that. And so hopefully we can keep it going enough until this is all over with.
Well, I hope so. I truly hope so. I miss live music so much. It's my lifeblood. I go to at least 7 shows a month, and the fact that I haven't had any is just, I can tell in myself how irritated I am by life that I don't get to go see live music. Because you brought it up earlier, doing live streams, and I was watching live streams at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, yeah, this is great, but it didn't feel right.
Yeah, I mean that it's kind of an advantage with the live stream because I've seen people like Glenn Phillips and Ian Moore and some of my favorite artists that are doing these live streams, and like, oh wow, I see this intimate show with them, and I see them like mess up when they try to read the comments when they're playing at the same time, so I don't feel so bad when I do that myself. And then but at the same time, it doesn't have the same impact as a live show. I mean, I'm thankful that I can see them because, where I live, a lot of these acts don't come to the South a lot. They may come to Atlanta or something. That might be as close as they come. And so being
Yeah.
able to see them perform is great, but it's still not the same. You don't have that live show experience. There's something about, performing for a crowd and everyone being there together for that moment that is just magic.
Yeah, and everyone's there for that. And that's my thing about with music is always trying to explain to people and say, what's good is good. A good song is a good song, regardless of who writes it and who sings it. It's a good song. And when you go to a show, you gotta say about 98% of the people that are at that show are there for that show. You got a couple people who were told to come with people, but everyone is there for the same thing. So everyone's attitude is always the same. Everyone's excited. Everyone can't wait to watch the people that are there to see perform. And I've met so many amazing people through music. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, is because I just love talking about music and talking about music with people, whether you're a musician or not. Everybody has an opinion and everything is important to them, and what's important to them may not be important to you, but to hear their version of a song that you like as well can change a song for you. And I've had that happen so many times, and I think it's amazing. And it really sucks that we don't have that right now, and I don't have that outlet to meet new people. This is my outlet now, reaching out to you and talking. This is my outlet, and it gives me a little excitement. I couldn't wait until we were going to, I was going to talk to you today and record and talk about music with somebody, because it's what makes me happy. It's kind of self-serving, but I need it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the purpose of music anyway. You talk about a show where everybody's there for the same purpose. Everybody's together, at a time when we're so divided. It's just such a good feeling to have a bunch of people in the same room just feeling the same thing. And it kind of brings you back. You remember those shows. You remember the shows that were really good, that had an impact on you. And, it's like you said before, you remember them the same way that I remember listening to those songs with my mom when I was a kid. You get the same kind of thing when you're at a show with those people and you see your favorite band play a song, a little different way or something where it's just unique and you have that moment together, and you never forget that.
Yeah. So you brought it up with what you were just saying. I know it's hard for people to pinpoint things, and you're allowed to have more than one, but your favorite band. They're your favorite, and you go to them all the time, and anytime you hear anything they write, you're just happy.
Oh my gosh.
It's a loaded question.
It is. That's hard. It's so hard to pick one favorite because I have so many I like, and I have so many that
So
I
do
like
I.
for
And
so
listen, you
many.
can give me more than one.
Okay. So for so many different reasons, and so many of them that have been an influence on me in different ways. So, oh my gosh. Well, I will start with giving you my favorite song of all time, which is a song called "In a Daydream" by the Freddie Jones Band. They're a band from Chicago. I don't know if you've heard them, and their live version of that off of their first album is my favorite song of all time. It's the most positive vibe song that I've ever heard, and I just love it. Um, Man, some others that I like, of course, Matthew Sweet is great. Um, Better Than Ezra was a big influence on me.
Uh, they are. I have this category that I do: underrated, overrated. And what I mean by that is bands got a little overrated because the songs that hit and were on the radio, but they're
Hmm.
underrated for everything that they've done. Like people just, Rosalia, everybody loved that song and it was on the radio, and I thought it was one of their most overrated songs because everything else that no one heard is some of the best music you've ever heard in your entire
Yeah,
life.
exactly. And Kevin Griffin is such a great performer, and he goes and does solo stuff, like just him and his guitar, like the same way
Yep.
I do, and it's
I've seen him a
phenomenal.
bunch of times in New York City. I live in New Jersey, right outside New York City, and I've seen him a bunch of times by himself, and he really is just he's magical.
Yeah, he is a phenomenal performer. He knows how to connect with a crowd, and he's funny and he's entertaining, and just, in addition to being such a great singer-songwriter.
All right. So, favorite band. Do you remember your favorite show?
Man, so many great shows that were magical. Some that stick out in my mind. I actually saw Better Than Ezra on the Friction Baby tour at the 40 Watt in Athens, Georgia. And that was a pretty great show. That was pretty phenomenal. Um, Great shows I've seen lately. I saw 311 a few years ago at in Atlanta at the
Okay.
Tabernacle. That was phenomenal. If you 311 is one of those bands, either you get them or you don't. And they put on such a positive show, and they have a lot of positive fans. Um,
They were good at what they did, and that's one of those bands too that I would say to people, and as anything, if it's good, it's good, and they were good at what they did, and no one else was doing that. So when people would kind of shit on them and be like, "Oh man, what?" No, they're the best at what they do because no one else is willing to try to do what they're doing.
yeah, 311's like a genre,
Yeah,
unto themselves. And so
yeah,
I've always loved 311, and they're all about positivity and unity and stuff, and that's great, and I love that.
yeah.
Um,
One of my favorite songs of all time is a 311 song, Amber. It honestly is in the summertime. I put that song on and I'm ready to just go out into the ocean by myself. Like it is one of my favorite songs.
it's great. Another another show that stands out in my mind is when I saw Jump Little Children. And Jump Little Children, that's the band that I've probably seen live more than any other band. They were kind of a regional success, and I've seen them dozens of times. But they had a show at the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta, and and keep in mind, this is like guys with acoustic guitar, cello, upright bass, drums, and then like an accordion and some other stuff. And they said, "All right, can we get everybody just be quiet?" And they unplugged their instruments. They all came out to the front of the stage and they played a song completely acoustic in this beautiful theater type venue. And it was just amazing. Everybody was so quiet listening to them. And then when they finally finished the song, it just erupts in applause, and then they plug back in and finish the rest of the show. But that was pretty, that stands out in my mind as one of those magic moments.
Yeah, that's so by me there's this church and it's right next to major rock venue in New Jersey, and it's a fundraising thing. It's called Outpost at the Burbs. It's actually a really great cause that they do, but they've brought in some very talented performers. The Lone Bellow has played there. The Milk Carton Kids. I don't know if you know who they are, but during the show, it's inside of a church, so you can imagine the acoustics are absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
But they get off the stage and they turn everything off, and it's very dimly lit, and they're just in the middle of the church with an acoustic guitar and singing, and you're not even listening to the lyrics because you can't, because the sound is so amazing, and it literally just brings a tear to your eye because it's just such a feeling. You're in a church, so you're already overwhelmed, and this just melodic acoustic sound comes, and that's just that feeling at a show. And it's one of those things where I hadn't really experienced shows like that before, and I've been going to more that they were having there, and it was just like I didn't care who was playing. It was just the fact that that venue was just so amazing to hear the echoing and just the reverberation through the walls, and sitting in a pew and like getting to see Milk Carton Kids. They're Grammy Award winners for folk music, and it was just like this is amazing. And just having that feeling at a show, and it's one of those things where if I try to pick my favorite show, I don't know what I'd be able to tell you. I mean, we're gonna have a list of all the shows I went to in the past 3 years, and it'll blow your mind for me to even pick out my favorite out of that in 3 years.
Right,
So the
right. It's
fact that
like
you're
It's like, I don't know how long you want this podcast to be, but we
Yeah.
could go on and on.
Yeah. Do you remember your first show? At like, were you a child? Were you a small child? Were you? Because I'll put it out there right now for everyone to know. My first concert ever, I was a real little kid, was Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, nice. My first show, this is going to show my age, but when I was really little, I saw Ricky Nelson
Wow.
at a local venue. My parents growing up when they did, they were into that kind of music, and they were like, "Oh, well, he's doing this local thing. Let's come out and see Ricky Nelson." And now and he I think he died in a plane crash or something not
Yeah.
long after that. But it was like, I guess that was my first show, Ricky Nelson.
Wow. Awesome. So, do you have any unskippable albums that you like to listen to? I always put it out there. Unskippable albums to me is one of the first four Led Zeppelin albums, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction.
hmm
Uh, like those are to me quintessential unskippable albums. Like the first song, the last song, you can't. There's nothing to skip because they're great. Do you have anything that you like to listen to that you just would never skip a song on the album while you're listening to it?
Oh yeah, Matthew Sweet, 100% fun. That album, I love it back to back. It's just phenomenal. It's just like beautiful, well produced power pop goodness, and it was a huge influence on me when that album came out. So that's probably one of them for me.
I I love that answer because I've put out before Altered Beast. I thought Altered Beast never got what it should have.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Love that it should have, but 100% fun. I mean, he had to run three albums in a row with Girlfriend, 100% fun, and Altered. It's just like, how did this guy just come up with these three albums? They're
I know it's
so great.
phenomenal. I cover Time Capsule at my shows all the time.
Wow. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I got to see him a couple years ago here in the city. It was pretty awesome to just be like, wow, this is him.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. I saw him back in the '90s at big venues and stuff, and then when he put out Tomorrow Forever, he started playing these small places. So he comes in to Chattanooga and plays this local little club that I've played before, many times. I'm like, oh wow, Matthew Sweet's playing at the same venue I played, and so you go in there and it's just these like right there in front of you in this tiny little venue, and I'm so used to
Yeah,
seeing him in big arena type stuff. It's so great.
it's I love when artists do that kind of stuff, and for some reason, whether they're not as popular as they were, so they're playing it, but the fact that they're still playing, they're still willing to go play these smaller venues is amazing because it gives that opportunity to the people that want to see them. They're there for that. Like I say, you go to an arena show. I don't go to arena shows. I just don't because I feel like I'm lost in the crowd. And I don't know, the last arena show and probably the first one in many, many years that I got to was Foo Fighter. I went to see the Foo Fighters,
hmm
but it was one of those things. I'd never seen them before. And my wife kept pushing me, you have to go, you have to go, you have to go. I was like, I just I can't go to Madison Square Garden to see a concert. Like, I can't enjoy myself being as far away as I am to watch a show, but I was glad I went.
hmm
I got to see him, but it's the smaller venues. I mean, that's why I'm very lucky to live where I live next to New York City and be able to go to all these little venues to see all these people I want to see. I'm
Yes,
very lucky in that. And
that's great.
Chattanooga is an awesome place too. I mean, I've been to Chattanooga a couple times. I love the town. I think it's a great little town that not many people know about.
Yeah, and the thing that's so frustrating too is that back before COVID, our music venues were growing. We had more venues coming in, quality venues, and plus we had other places to play, like all these new breweries and stuff were opening up to have live music, and so it was just growing and growing. And then the COVID hit, and it was just like, oh man, we were starting to become like a mini Nashville or something, and then that just kind of like squashed that. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and we need more places like that. And Nashville's great for what it is. I've been there a bunch of times too, but Nashville's great for what it is. But I want I want other little places to pop up around the country. I go to Georgia a lot, down in Savannah, and there's no like great music venues down there. And I'm like, this is such a great town. How do we not have some great music venues where we can just bring people in? So, you can have these little pop ups and you can start a new little scene somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
which, those scenes pop up all over the place. I mean, LA was your glam metal. Seattle was your grunge. But Seattle wasn't well known before that. Now Nashville is like your new country and your pop, and like a lot of different things are coming out of there, rock Americana, and let's get a new scene somewhere else. And that's why, as you said, these places opened and everyone gets excited, and then we got hit with what we got hit with.
Yeah, you got to get people who are willing to invest in that kind of thing and create a scene. And and some of the best places I've played, when I tour around and stuff, is the small towns. It's like they're much more appreciative of
Yeah,
of good music coming in, because they don't get it a lot. So it's pretty cool.
yeah. So you have your fifth studio album coming out. You want to tell everybody the name of it?
Yeah, it's called Chameleana, which is kind of a portmanteau of chameleon and Americana, because I kind of start writing the songs with just me and acoustic guitar, so it's sort of an Americana type music. But then like I add all this different stuff to it, and this album I really didn't limit myself, so I've got electric guitar, I've got synthesizer, I've got a whole string section, I've got cello, and so I just kind of like I had this idea of like, well, I'm kind of starting with me and a guitar, but I'm going to add all these different colors, and I'm going to change my colors on all these different songs. That's why I called it Chameleana.
Awesome. That's a great description of, because when I saw the name, I was like, gotta find out what that means. So, so it comes out on the 23rd. I'm really looking forward to it. I did have an opportunity to hear it. So for those people that are out there, I hope you enjoy it. This is going to drop the day before it comes out. So try to get you some more play of it. We're coming in on our time that we like to keep this at. So what I do every week is I end this podcast with what I call our weekly threes. It's three things you're listening to right now that you would just like to tell people about or want other people to know about that maybe they haven't heard of, or even if they have heard of. What are three things that you've been listening to now? Three bands, three performers. What do you got?
Well, I've been listening a lot lately to Beck's Hyperspace album, um, which is kind of this like, I don't know, really post vaporwave kind of vocally laden music, which I love because we didn't really get into it a lot, but I have a choral arts background as well, and so I really love that big vocal sound. So I've been
Yeah.
listening to that a lot. Um, I've also what else I've been listening to. Been listening to a little bit of the Flaming Lips, their American Head album. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. Great
And
band.
yeah, yeah. And some of the stuff on my new album was kind of getting compared to them, so that's kind of cool too. And I've been listening to my fall playlist on Spotify, which has, songs that I kind of associate with, with the fall just through the years. And so it's got Dance Macabre on it. It's got some old Better Than Ezra and Tonic songs. It's got some Black Crows, and oh, my phone's going off. Sorry about that. But
That's
anyway,
all
yeah,
right.
it's and some old stuff. It's a playlist from through the years of
That's awesome.
things that remind me of this time of year, which I love. Fall, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's as I always talk about with music, it's that time machine. You hear those songs, it brings you back to that
Exactly.
time. So my weekly threes this week are the Body Rampant, band from LA, and kind of a post-hardcore band. They're actually pretty amazing. Freakwave from Melbourne, Australia. They're kind of a new wave post-punk band, really good. And then I'm ending this week with a band called The Connells. The Connells, if anybody ever knew who they were 80s and 90s, and in my estimation, in my opinion, I think they had one of the best albums in the 90s that nobody knows about. It was called Ring. It's very melodic and poppy, kind of the ways of a Jellyfish or Toad the Wet Sprocket or Posies, but I think they were very overlooked in that time. But the Connells, Ring, one of my favorite albums of all time. Been listening to it a lot this week. So, Jason, I want to say thank you so much for joining me this week. I'd like you to get out your website, all your other stuff that you're doing. Now's your time to put it all out there for everyone to hear.
Well, you can get everything at jasonlylesmusic.com, which is Lyles with a Y, and follow me on social media. It's at Jason Lyles Music. Of course, I'm on Spotify and all the streaming services, so you can get my music there. And you can see on YouTube my official music videos. The Fight is out, a video that just dropped, featuring the footage from the protests in Chattanooga this summer. And so I got 4 official music videos out, working on the 5th one this Friday. And so, yeah, jasonlylesmusic.com, at Jason Lyles Music, and that happens to be my Venmo too, just saying.
You do have a lot of merch out there as well, people.
He's
got a lot of stuff to help support
that. Yeah, jasonlylesmusic.com/store. You can order CDs, stickers, T-shirts, posters, all that good stuff. And the new album, I'm particularly proud of it. A former student of mine did the artwork on the front of it, and it's got this chameleon on a guitar, and it's a watercolor painting, and it's just beautiful. I'm so proud of her work.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw it. It is a beautiful album cover, which I think we miss a lot of that album cover stuff nowadays with the digital age of music.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you so much for being a guest on this show. Again, we are the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And, everyone just go out there and have a great time.